Addicks progress in the League Cup and now face a very difficult trip to Ashton Gate in the EFL Championship. Let's talk about it. Hi there, and welcome into the next episode of the From the Valley Flow podcast. My name is Callum and I will be your host. Addicks progress in the League Cup. Pretty comfortable evening against Stevenage at the Valley last night. And a good night overall for the Charlton Athletic Academy. 2 goal scorers yesterday and Deji scoring as well for Bromley against Ipswich Town. We'll chat about that a little bit. We'll have a little bit of a conversation about something that's been sort of slightly bothering me about some of the online comments that I'm seeing about Flair players. So I'll have just a quick little chat about Callum, and then we will have do a bit of a preview of the what I think is going to be a really difficult trip to Ashton Gate on Saturday afternoon. All right. So last night, the Addicks played Stevenage in the first round of the Carabao Cup. My hope here is that I will get the results of the draw before I come off the podcast and I do a bit of reaction to that. Fingers crossed that I get a home game, which would be West Ham away. but we'll have to wait and see. So I've got a friend in the comments who'll let me know when I undoubtedly miss it. Right, let's talk about yesterday. Yeah, so it was a really hot night at the Valley last night. It wasn't the most fascinating spectacle in the world. I never think the first round of League Cups are of any cup really. It wasn't a particularly quite sexy draw. Playing against Stevenage, who played a couple of times in League One. Played them in the League Cup a couple of years ago as well. Actually, was that the game that we won that put us through to play Brighton before we went to Old Trafford? I think it may have been. But yeah, it wasn't the most exciting of ties. That's one you just kind of had to get through. You wanted to get some minutes into players that hadn't played. And I thought it was quite an interesting lineup. A couple of players that Nathan's obviously played to try and get them sort of minutes. And then there are players that were quite clear. You can see that they're not either on the depth chart or really wanted past the end of the window. And then there are also players, young players that were really, really impressive. And we'll have a chat, especially about Ibrahim Fuller in just a couple of moments. The first thing about the lineup was minutes for Nibs. I thought it was really good on the night, actually, sort of stitching together the play. Maka got minutes, so he played well as well. Probably makes the argument sort of maybe top of League One is about the level. Maybe we'll see what happens in the Championship. I think Bell's probably nailed down that spot for Saturday. Minutes in the legs for Alex Mitchell, gaming goal for Will Mannion. He didn't really have much to do. Made one good save in the second half and didn't make any mistakes, which is all you want from your backup goalkeeper. In terms of up front, Oluwafe getting minutes and Miles getting minutes, and I thought Miles looked really good on the night. Got to about an hour and just completely gassed, which is fine. He's been basically not played football for with the exception of 2 or 3 months last year for almost 2 years. You got to give him a little bit of time to get to get reacquainted. Hi Sam, just in the chat. Sorry, I'm still getting used to doing the live stream. So those of you that are watching live, forgive me. I have to sort of take a moment and make sure my comment section is open. I'm on the screen in front. I thought Tanto looked good on the ball. I thought very interesting. Nathan Jones been quite highly critical actually in the post match about him having an opportunity where he didn't take a shot. To me, that wasn't actually the thing that bothered me about Tanto. There was a pretty easy 5-yard pass into Miles that he missed in the first half. That was quite annoying. But you can see what Tanto brings. All forward players are going to get the ball away. All forward players aren't going to make a pass every single time. It just comes to playing the position. You've got to be able to take risks. And hopefully have moments in games where you sort of change. You sort of change it. Um, but I thought they looked actually really good playing together. One, you could see Miles would knock the ball down, Tanto ran off him, and then you sort of saw Nib sort of coming across almost doing that. I know they call him the Berkshire Bellingham, right, up at Reading. You can kind of see he's playing that role, which is sort of, it's a 10, but he almost pushes a bit higher than that. And it worked pretty well because when Luke Berry came on in the second half, he actually kind of did pretty much the same job. But yeah, I think it was pretty positive. I haven't mentioned Ibrahim Fuller, who I thought was absolutely fantastic playing out of position. This is a cam, right? He's a number 10, and he's playing at left wing back, and I thought he was absolutely brilliant. I think and I've said this on multiple podcasts now. That 4-year contract with the club option he signed last January is an absolute relief. This is a player who has all the talent in the world. He does look a little bit like a mini Lookman, doesn't he? We wore the same number, right? Lookman coming through wore 37. You could see that, Fuller rocking the 37 last night. I wonder if that was just a coincidence. But I thought it was absolutely brilliant, on the goal if you get to see the replay. It's a really nice little back flick, actually, from Miles Liban there. To almost get it across. I don't think that's what he's intending to do. I think Liban was trying to do what he did against Morecambe a couple of seasons ago, where he flicks it in. Where he sort of back flicks it in. But it comes to him, and Fuller's so much work to do there, and he out muscles the defender who's bigger than him. He can kind of slide under him, and it's a beautiful finish into the bottom corner. And then, I thought it was a really lovely thing to him to get a little bit emotional after that. So it's been with us Watson, he was in the U9s, was it? If you see videos of him, he's clearly he's a Charlton kid, right? He loves the club, he loves being here. And that's really exciting. That those academy kids coming through are almost all locked up on long-term contracts. The only one really looking at is Tyrese Campbell, and we found out from Rich Cawley in the summer that there's actually an extra option on him. So, and I've heard through the grapevine that the club are actually intending to sign him on a longer-term deal as well. So we'll see where that ends up. In terms of the subs that came on, Mwamba, really, really impressive. Again, really athletic, big, strong, powerful player. And I think that Nathan sort of waxed lyrical about him in the post match, and you can see why. I think again, all the talent in the world, really big, strong, tall kid, really fits that sort of middle role. If I wants to play, and I think that he was quite impressive. I realise now I haven't discussed actually Joe Rankin Costello, who, despite playing the ball out of play on multiple occasions, I actually thought had a really good game. That's a little bit counterintuitive, but he was quite often he was playing balls that he expected players to be running onto, and you can see he's a championship player. Right, that ball goes to Joe Rankin Costello, it's gone. Right, and you could see you've got two young kids on the side, so you've got Fuller and you had Ryder on the other side. I didn't think quite as good a game, but I think Ryder is another player that could be something. We don't know what that is. I don't think the talent's quite as apparent as it is maybe with a Fuller or a Mwamba, but there's definitely something there. And so I think that that final ball probably isn't quite there yet, but that can take a while to come. And also fair play to Henry Riley for giving us all a massive laugh when he got absolutely berated by Nathan Jones for standing in the wrong position. So it doesn't matter what your age is, Nathan Jones will still give you an absolute rollicking. I've got this. This came in from Sam from Charlton Live. Following his performance last night, we're surprised we don't play Fuller. Yeah, I mean, I think Nathan was sort of saying we will see him. He tried to take the pressure off him by sort of saying, "Look, but it is the Championship. We don't know how much we're going to play him." You could see that. The one thing I would note, which is, Fuller is a small, he's a cam, right? He's a small attacking player. Playing at wing back is a little bit of a risk. I think at Championship level, you got big, stronger sort of wingers. I think we saw that. I think it was Wealdstone in the preseason game. He played left wing back, and it didn't particularly work. I think one of their sort of just big non-league. That's very stereotypical, right? But big, strong sort of non-league lad just kind of knocked him off. And so that's something to pay attention to. But I think that I think that all the youngsters that played were absolutely fine. In terms of the subs, Luke Berry coming on, option for TC actually, Sam. That's a good point. It could be. I don't know if he's quite a striker though. And Nathan really likes TC. I saw some comments online about, we're going to drop TC. Is it possible to drop TC? Nathan's not going to drop TC. I think that's pretty obvious. That's a player that he really, really likes. I wonder if at some point we may end up seeing TC and Lieben or something like that for just to have a big man and a small man, which I guess maybe is less important in the Championship, but I wouldn't be surprised if we see it maybe at another point. It was good to see Luke Berry come on. I haven't seen him play in months. It's nice to see him come on and get over the injury. It's a lovely header. It's a beautiful ball from Daniel Carney. Fair play to the lad. It's a great cross. But it's a wonderful header. He had absolutely no right to win that, Luke Berry. I saw the interview with Alex Ravel, the Stevenage manager, afterwards. And he was saying he never should win that header. He shouldn't win that header. But that's kind of what Luke Berry does, is that you don't really see him much in a game, and all of a sudden he's the one that pops up in the box, uses his head or with a wonderful finish, and that is his game. And perhaps he's more suited to coming off the bench and being able to do that towards the end of a game now. I'd be surprised if he's starting too many games, but he will be in Nathan Jones' squad, I would imagine, every single week. He's like Nathan Jones' comfort blanket at the level. But yeah, I got myself, I think, into a little bit of hot water online. When do I not? Which was over my comments about Charlie Kelman heading to the game this weekend. I just want to clarify what I meant. The point I was making is that, and I get it, right? Charlie Kelman's played 115 minutes, is it, of football? He hasn't even had I think he's had 2 shots. One of which yesterday was like a really heavily deflected. It wasn't really an open. It wasn't really a great opportunity. He sort of fashioned out of nothing. Fair play to him. Against Watford, he was kind of, sort of dealt with by 2 massive centre backs, and that's going to happen in games in the Championship. I understand that, but my thing is that I watched Oluwafe play, I watched Lieben play, and there was a real excitement when they're on the ball. I haven't seen that from Kelman yet, and I get it. He's a poacher, he's a finisher. You have to give him the opportunity in the box. It's sort of in a way why Rob Apter is here, right? Is to, when Harvey Nibbs is fit, you'll have players to play that. I just wonder at the moment, but when we don't have Nibbs necessarily able to play a full game, whether Kelman is the right option for now. But I also understand the point that, hey, actually, we want to get the minutes into him. My point online was really just making the point that he look quite a way off it compared to the other options we had yesterday. And, the competition isn't quite as strong. I get that. But it does worry you going into what's a really difficult game at Ashton Gate, which we'll get into in a little bit. So, yeah, no, that was the point I was making. I got myself with another bit of hot water, which is a comment. I saw someone make a comment about the goalkeepers, which sort of baffled me slightly. Again, I want to know what I meant. I think someone was saying something. It was about the penalty, right? That it should have been a penalty for Watford. I get it. Kaminski sort of dawdled on the line a bit, wasn't sure where to come or go or whatever. Didn't come get it. Then when he did come, he trips the player, and pretty obviously a penalty. But he kept a clean sheet. Other than that, he didn't have much to do. Distribution was actually better than I thought it was going to be. And someone was talking about bringing back, Man United. I thought that's a bit of a strange one, right? After a game in which goalkeeper's kept a clean sheet, he's actually kept a clean sheet in 2 games now, if you include the pre-season game. I don't get that. My point with the goalkeepers, and I think it was Michael's commenting on. I think if Michael's listening, how you doing, mate? I see him at away games all the time. He's a really great guy. But he was saying to me, he's like, you're always very much the goalkeepers. This is a thing. When you listen to this podcast, I wasn't I'm becoming one again. I was a goalkeeper pretty much my entire life from the age of about 9. Goalkeepers are the thing that irrationally annoy me, in a way that very few things do. So I will be probably highly critical of Kaminski at points. But he was making the point you didn't like either Mannion or Ash, and I made the point I didn't actually particularly like either of them. I thought Mannion was solid for the level, and I think Ash is a little bit too inconsistent for me. Right? That doesn't mean I think either of them are bad players. I don't think either of them are good at a certain division. There's a reason why neither of them got the number 1 shirt last year, right? And that's because we spent half the summer trying to find the number 1 who was willing to come in at a price point that was reasonable. And when we went up, what was the first thing we did? Brought in a goalkeeper to wear the number 1 shirt, right? So, it's going to be something I probably comment on quite a lot. All right, you're also for those of you that are tuning in, probably for the Bristol City preview. We head to Ashton Gate on on Saturday afternoon, 3:00 kickoff. I think there's maybe 100 tickets left, something like that. It would surprise me if it doesn't sell out ultimately. Really good showing considering it's the holiday period. Just a side note for anyone that's waiting on QPR tickets, I think that the ticket office is, for anyone that asked, the ticket office sent an email out saying that it should be this week. Sometimes they do that and it ends up in the beginning of next week, but QPR tickets will be coming. I'd imagine you're going to have to be relatively high on the points list to be able to get a ticket for that. Yeah, come Sam. You're absolutely right, Sam. Absolutely right. We all think we know how to play the game when we've played it at any level. It doesn't mean I'm a goalkeeping expert, by the way. It just means that I get irrationally upset about things that they do. But yeah, so it's a different. But yeah, for those of you that have asked about tickets for QPR, those of you that are worried they're not coming, they will be. But yeah, you may have to have a reasonably high loyalty points total to be able to get tickets for that game. We can get into it, I think, in an international break thing. But as somebody that has Valley Gold, I have enough points anyway. I'd be in the top 2 groups. But somebody that has Valley Gold, I think some of the Valley Gold stuff has been a bit of a problem in terms of the way in which it's all ranked. And I think it was a problem at Wembley, which wasn't really the club's fault. I understand they expected to get more tickets, and then Wembley decided you couldn't have them and all the rest of it. But there are. We can get into ticketing. Another point. I spent half the review last week moaning about concessions in the concession stand, so I'm going to move on to do the preview. Actually, just before I did the trip to Ashton Gate, I read something which really interested me. I'd be really interested to get any sort of feedback anyone has on this. Email from thevalleyfloyd@gmail.com, and I'll have a look at it and maybe respond on Sunday, which was about. It was Marcus Rashford made some comments this morning about Man United and the fact they're in transition. I promise it's not a tangent. It goes back to something quite specific. And I was reading it, and a lot of the comments, right now, bearing in mind Marcus Rashford, the 15th top scorer in Man United history, right? And a lot of the comments were really vitriolic of lazy, not trying, you're the reason, blah, 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 blah. And I realized that actually it's because he's a flair player, right? Flair players don't run around and throw themselves into tackles. They never really have, right? It's why players like Edinson Cavani, for example, are so interesting, right? It's because they do. But most flair players don't sort of throw themselves into difficult challenges or run the risk of hurting themselves or look like they're particularly bothered at times. It's a very normal flair player thing. I think the player in the Charlton squad that screams that is Tyrese Campbell, right? He's a player that quite often balls out of things. He does battle, if the ball's near him, but he's not, he's not the highest pressure in the world. He's not the sort of player that's going to be sort of on the goalkeeper when they have the ball necessarily. And he gets a lot of the same comments, actually. I think it's quite an interesting thing about flair players. I'm just interested in those that I'm someone, I think Nathan probably has sort of shown to everyone, right, talking about the flair players, in that he keeps playing Tyrese, right? So you must think he works hard enough if he keeps playing him. And that would kind of be my point to those that sort of criticize that is like I don't think Tyrese is particularly unique in the fact that he's not a high presser or a quote unquote hard worker in that way. I think he does other things, runs off the ball, creating space, that's far more sort of impactful than it is sort of him attempting to tackle a centre back on the halfway line. All right, so now that we can do the preview, I had a conversation with Tom, who's a contributor at the Three Peaps in a podcast. A great podcast, by the way. It's not just Bristol City; they do some sort of film stuff. It's great. You get the opportunity to have a listen. A really nice guy. He sort of gave me the lowdown on Bristol City. Before I sort of play that sort of pre-recorded video, and that will kind of be the outro of this one as well. I really am. I'm interested. I'm very interested in some of the sort of predictions about Bristol City, right, coming in. A lot of people had them sort of down in 14th, 15th. Some a bit higher, maybe 10th. right? And I thought that's weird for a team that, if you look at the business they've done some really good business this summer, Bristol City. Ashton Gate's a hard place to go and play at times. It's a terrible place to watch. If it's on TV, it's a terrible place because it's got the old, it's like the old rugby sightlines. So you feel like you're watching it from like a hovercraft. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really, really difficult game, and I think that you stick with the same team that beat Watford. You don't change your winning team. I think that's a pretty that's a sort of quote unquote rule. But when I look at that, I think you probably don't press as high. I think you probably sit a bit further back. Maybe Rob Apter takes sort of a couple of yards further back rather than being quite as high as he was. I don't know if in a way environment like that, as much as I love Kane Ramsey, as much as I think Kane Ramsey can deal with pretty much anything. In an environment like that, I wouldn't necessarily want him dealing with a bunch of 2-on-1s, especially if one of those 2-on-1s is Scott Twine, who I think is a fantastic footballer. And please do not give free kicks away on the outside of the box to Scott Twine, Charlton. Thank you very much. If I come in on Sunday after the game doing the review and we've given Scott Twine a free kick and lost 1-0, I'm going to be very, very annoyed. So the main thing is do not foul them outside our box. Thank you. But I don't think you change too much. Again, I think a lot of people still some worries about Greg Doherty at this level. And I understand that, right, from the technical standpoint. But I think for now, Nathan's going to stick with it. I don't think we're going to see huge amounts of changes unless we actually tonked 5 or 6-0. I don't think you're going to see any sort of real changes to that 11 until at least after the international break. And even then, we got Millwall coming out of that break. So, I think some of this is going to be trust Nathan, trust the squad he's chosen. He hasn't let us down. We've joined Birmingham as being one of the only 2 teams to win 20 games in the year, which is a pretty impressive stat. So I think that if I look at it and in the prediction you'll hear it, I sort of went I'd take a 1-1. I'd take a draw. I'd take a 0-0, to be honest. That'd be great. But for me, I think it would be something if we can do. It'd be an excellent point. I've got a thing on Sam just on the point I was making about flair players earlier. It says, "I've seen Rashford's comments show how quickly the club allowed him to go. Especially, yes, he's one of your treasures. Nothing to shout about like other Man United legends." Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting one. I think that some of the stuff with Rashford, I think, is quite. Some of the comments go very, very close to very, very uncomfortable positions. I'm going to put it that way. I don't want to get too controversial on here. Is a player that's made mistakes. I think that's pretty obvious. But I think that one of the big problems that they've had is very similar to us. It's chopping, changing of managers, right? There are times when they really backed a manager and times when they didn't back a manager, and it's all just a bit of a mess. And I think it goes a long way beyond specific players. But I think in terms of my point was really about specifically flair players and not tracking back. And I don't think that makes them lazy in the way that people say it does. They're not midfielders, right? They're not expected to do that job. And I think sometimes, as we talk about high energy press as a team, well, you need someone that's kind of a bit like lifting the pressure valve. But yeah, I mean, going back to the original point, I think that I would be very happy if we came away with a point from Ashton Gate on Saturday afternoon. I think it's going to be a really difficult game in a pretty difficult environment. Bristol City are kind of on the up at the moment. Although it would be nice to get one over on their manager, who someone was telling me was the manager at Barnsley when they scored that last minute goal to stay up and relegate us. So it'd be nice to get one over him. But what I'm going to do now, I'm the draw for the second round's going up. What I'll do is I'll hold on to which sounds to me now. Just after this point, it's about Man United being in the pot. I'm not banging on about United, by the way. I was trying to really make a specific point about players, but hey, but I think they're in the northern section, Sam. So we're in the southern section. It's actually all regional. So we can only play. I think the only Premier League teams we can play: Bournemouth, West Ham, Fulham. and it must Brighton. Is it Brighton who aren't in Europe? It might be Brighton. I can't remember. There's one other southern team that we can't play in the draw. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is I'll do the Carabao Cup sort of quite react. I'm not going to react heavily to a second round game because we're going to Plymouth on a Tuesday night. It's written in the stars. Well, as soon as I'll react to that on the post game on Sunday. Now I'm just going to play a conversation I had with Tom about the game against Bristol City, and I will see you all on Sunday. I'm thinking probably it's going to be a bit later. I've got Sunday League pre-season on Sunday, so I'll probably be sort of late afternoon. So hopefully after Super Sunday. All right. There you go, everybody. This is Tom from the Three Peeps in a Pod podcast, and I will talk to you all on Sunday with the post match. Hi there, everybody. Welcome back in. I am delighted to be joined by Tom from the Three Peeps in a Pod podcast.
Yeah, three Peeps in a podcast. I'm by no means one of the co-hosts. I'm just a contributor who goes on quite occasionally, to be honest. But I know the chaps Matt and Patch really, really well. But it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tongue twister of a
yeah,
of a name.
yeah. I don't know where the name came from 100%. I was speaking with the other co-founder actually on Saturday before the game, but yeah, it's nothing to do with me. I'm just a contributor occasionally.
All right. So you guys had a good first weekend, didn't you? With a win away at Sheffield United, got a little bit of sweet revenge.
Yeah, yeah. It was it's quite exciting to be there. To be honest, I'm not from Bristol. I live about an hour or so away from Sheffield, so getting to both the Sheffield teams games is always quite easy for me. So I went to both games in the playoff final, playoff semi-final, should I say? So it was quite satisfying to be there and beat them in the manner we did, and it was genuinely a really, really good performance as well. There's been a lot of it, people saying Sheffield United didn't play that well, but I think some credit has to be given to Bristol City. We played really well.
Yeah, and a fantastic free kick from Scott Twine, who's a player that I've actually always really quite liked from his days. It's MK Dons, wasn't he?
Yeah, MK Dons, then went to Burnley, didn't he? Then he came to us. Or there might have been another club in between, but yeah,
he's a loan at Hull in there, I think.
Yes, yeah, he was at Hull, yeah, and then we got him in January on loan for the second half of season before last. Through then, but yeah, he's one of those, isn't he? I can't remember the stat exactly what was on Sky Sports. I think it's got something like scored 16 direct free kicks now in the past X amount of years, which is ridiculous for any footballer. But he's the sort of man you probably want over more than most people in the world, I would have thought.
It's probably only between him and James Ward-Prowse, isn't it, for English sort of free kick takers that I can think of.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't see Twiney getting a call off anytime soon, but it's it's certainly a good thing to have in our arsenal. It's almost like having a penalty when we get a free kick just outside the box, because we're almost guaranteed a shot on target, and I'd probably even go like sort of 7 times out of 10 we're likely to score from them, but they're always good value for a bet as well. You get a decent price on them for him to score outside the box.
Another really interesting bit of business I saw that you guys did in the summer as well, and we'll get to the manager in a moment, was Vitek, the young goalkeeper on loan from Manchester United. I believe was he in the Czech League? Austrian League maybe last year?
Yeah, he was in the Czech or the Austrian League last year. Then before that, I believe he was at Rochdale. Sort of our keeper Max O'Leary, who's come through the academy, he's a bit of a Marmite player, really. People, either really do quite like him or they don't like him. I've always been 50-50 on him. I think he's a very, very good shot stopper. But just watching Vitek on Saturday, he's just that big. He's that commanding. He's got that much presence about him. He just looks like a proper goalkeeper. And for the 90 minutes that I've seen already, I'm absolutely convinced by him already. And I'm hoping that he sticks around for the whole season. I know Man United do have a recall option in January, but I'm hoping he's good, but not too good, to sort of Man United to have a recall him, or even Onana not to, sort of have a bad spell in goal, and then they look what he's doing, hopefully down here, keeping a few clean sheets, etc.
Yeah, I think the United position on it is that they think he's probably a season or 2 away from being sort of able to fit into their first team squad.
Yeah, you got to be careful with loan players as well, haven't there? I mean, if you're the parent club and you look at them having a great season, and then you suddenly think, oh, should we call him up, or is that going to hinder his development? You're probably better off just giving him the full season in the Championship, realistically, aren't you? Plus, it's natural progression as well, because if he was playing in League One, League Two, Rochdale, then he's gone to the Czech League or the Austrian League, and now he's come to us. It's just so he's naturally playing for better clubs every season. So hopefully you'll get a decent run at Man United in the future. Or fingers crossed, if we were to get promoted, maybe a cheeky bid for ourselves to go in as well.
And we'll come back to the promotion thing in just a moment. I think that's really interesting. Is the new manager, who I was happily reminded, was in fact the manager of Barnsley when they scored a last-minute winner, which relegated us 5 seasons ago.
All right.
Yeah, it was a really quite painful day in Charlton fans' lives, and I don't think we'll ever forgive Brentford for that. But no, what do you think of the new boss? I know some of the football on Saturday was really exciting. I thought his post-match comments were really interesting. He basically said, "Look,
Yeah.
I watched it and saw Sellers leave lots of space, and I just sort of exploited it."
Yeah, he's an exciting manager, and the football. I think a few of us on the podcast have sort of commented on it. I think it's just going to be a roller coaster this season in terms of the football we are playing. It's good, it's attacking, it's quick. From the one game I have watched, I didn't watch any of the pre-season games that much. I've watched the highlights, but from watching a full night on Saturday, it was just constantly counter-attacking football. It was fast football. It was not necessarily direct football, but the passes were sort of direct up the lines into the channels, and then was getting into the box. And I think we had 5 shots on target, and we scored 4 goals. So just based on that game alone, it just shows how clinical we were, really. But yeah, in terms of his attitude, we went from Liam Manning, who was a brilliant coach, don't get me wrong, but listening to his press conferences and sort of watching him on the touchline, it was like watching paint dry at times. And then we've gone to the complete, opposite now in Struve, and he just seems like he's in the best way possible, like an absolute lunatic. He's just brilliant. It's so refreshing to see someone with enthusiasm and passion back in charge of the club.
So what I'm hearing from that is we may end up with a punch-up on the sideline at Ashton Gate between Nathan Jones and
I wouldn't
side entertainment, right?
Yeah. I wouldn't say punctual, but I think they're both very passionate managers. I saw Nathan Jones at the end of the game at the weekend, and I mean, Streamer wasn't necessarily doing that, but I just think they're both very passionate blokes, aren't they? So there might be a few little handbags here and there. We never know.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favourite moments from the weekend was Nathan Jones thanking the Watford fans for their support. Just a great little quip. We'll get into your sort of wider ambitions this season in a second. I just wondered sort of in terms of and whether they're players that previously were at Bristol City. Obviously as Charlton fans who've been watching a lot of League One football, so some of us haven't had that much opportunity to watch. Who are some of sort of your standout players we should be looking at ahead of the weekend?
So we've already spoke about Scott Twine. Emil Reese is a striker we signed from Preston. We got him on I believe he was out of contract when he left Preston to come to us. Again, he's a big, tall, well-built striker. When we initially signed him, I thought it was going to be like the ilk of Kiefer Moore, for example, but to watch him on Saturday, the way he picks up the ball, the way he runs with the ball, it's surprising how quick he actually is with the ball. It's that was really refreshing to see. So he's certainly one to watch. Centre mid as well, we've got Jason Knight. He will absolutely run for days, and he's the absolute engine room. He didn't have the best game in the world on Saturday, and I'm probably going to contradict myself as well with saying this, but when he typically doesn't play well, we don't play well. So. But then he didn't have his best game in the world, but we still came out 4-1 winners. But I'd probably say that them three in Twine are the ones to watch, and B-Tech as well. He's another one to watch at the back. But yeah, them sort of 3 or 4 players are the ones to watch for me.
And then we'll probably sort of end it here. I'm aware it's lunchtime for both of us. In terms of, this might be a bit of a cheeky way to put this question. But I'm assuming after sort of the playoff exploits last year that the aim this year is to get back into the top 6, sort of challenging up there. I know some of the sort of predictions have been a bit harsh on Bristol City. I saw some having you size 15th or 16th, which I thought was slightly mad. But how nice is it to no longer be competing for the 12th place cup?
Yeah, it's often been a joke that we're sort of nailed on 12th. I know a lot of fans when they do the predictions every season. Before last season, it was easy.
You shouldn't offend Preston fans by saying that's your God-given
well,
right.
Yeah,
I'll say it's theirs.
Yeah, and we've sort of argued. It was funny last season when we played Preston last game of the season. They needed something from it realistically beforehand. I think results went their way, so obviously they did stay up, and then results went our way after a draw, so we got in the playoffs. So it was that sort of saying, that's our goodbye from each other. We've finally separated from each other. But yeah, it's interesting. And I can understand why a lot of sort of like fan pundits and sort of pundits have put us as 15, because we are a little bit of an unknown quantity, really. We've got the same squad as last season, apart from Naki Wells, realistically. So I can't see why we couldn't, aim for a top 10 position. That's certainly the aim for me. Top 10, sort of knocking on the door to the playoffs towards Easter time. If we're sort of there or thereabouts around that time, I think that's probably going to be a good, successful season for Struber in his first season back in English football.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time, Tom. I don't know if there's anything you got any questions Charlton related for me.
Not that I can think of off the top of my head, mate, other than score prediction for Saturday.
I think it's a tough one for us. I think that Watford in many ways were kind of a perfect first week opponent. They're sort of new manager bedding in, new signings, injuries kind of all over the place at home. This is a very different challenge. I think there's going to be a really, really tough game. I'm going to go with my heart, and I'm going to go with a 1-1 draw. But it's one of those games where it's like if we lost it reasonably heavily, it wouldn't surprise me. I think that you're a really good side.
Yeah.
But as always, as any Charlton fan at the moment, just have to trust Nathan Jones can sort of commit some crimes against good attacking football away from home, and hopefully we can get something out of it.
Yeah, he's certainly got a little bit of history with us. I'm not sure if it's because of the sort of English Welsh sort of division that we have with sort of Cardiff and Swansea and that.
It's the Cardiff derby, isn't it? Because he's a Cardiff boy.
Yeah, so we've always got that. We've always got that little bit, and I know a lot of mates in my group chat can't stand it either. So it's
ultimate Marmite bloke.
It'll be fun. I mean, I've got no real opinion on him either way. I think it's good to see that sort of character on the touchline. It's much better than some managers who sit there, don't do anything. It's nice to see, and until you're playing against them, and you absolutely hate them.
How about you? Got a prediction for Saturday?
I'm probably going to go for 2-0 win, to be honest, for us.
Fair enough. I can see why you've gone with that.
Yeah, fancies to keep a clean sheet at home, but we'll see.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Really interesting to hear about Bristol City. It should be, I'd say it should be a good game on Saturday, but then I realised it's Nathan Jones going away from home, so good is a very relative term. But all the best for the rest of the season, and hopefully we'll see you down the valley. It's probably next year, February time, I think you guys are due.
Yeah, I think so, mate. Yeah, I've got it booked in my calendar. Just need to wait and see if Sky change it or not first. But yeah, I'm definitely going to try and get down for it.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Tom.
No worries, mate. Thanks for that. Cheers, mate.
Cheers.